closing breakfast. As a courtesy to all attendees, please ensure all cell phones are turned off. This year's summit has come at a critical time for our nation. As our nation works to educate and create jobs for the 21st century economy, community colleges will be in the forefront. We hope that you will make full use of the remainder of the day by visiting the Senate, House, and administration offices, executive offices. Our community colleges, as you know, provide training, education, opportunities to millions of Americans each year. Our work does not end today. We encourage you to stress the importance of community colleges when you return home to your state legislators and to your governors. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce Pauline Larwood. Pauline.
Good morning. The lights are so bright I can hardly see you, but I can hear you clinking, so I know you're having a good time. It is a pleasure and an honor to introduce keynote speaker, Representative Kevin McCarthy from my district in California. He's House Majority Whip, and he was first elected to represent the 22nd District of California in the U.S. House of Representatives in 2006. He was re-elected last November and is a member of the Financial Services Committee. Kevin cut his eye teeth in elected position when he was elected to the Kern Community College Board of Trustees, and a friend soon became a colleague, and it was a pleasure working with him. You might want to know some traits of Kevin's. Kevin, I don't want you to be nervous here. He's down to earth. When he joined our Board of Trustees, he made good relations and friends with faculty by playing basketball with them. Now, you might want to know if he's still up to that. I suspect he is. He's persuasive. He talked me into serving in a political office that I had never thought I would do. He's independent-minded. I didn't confirm this, but I made some assumptions. I believe his parents were Democrats, and they were leaders in the community. His father was a city fire chief, and Kevin sits before you as an independent-minded person, as a majority whip in the Republican Party. So I know he's always in good relations with Democrats as well as Republicans. Kevin was a businessman. So he's business-oriented, and he brings those skills to the office as well. Without further ado, please help me welcome my friend and Representative Kevin McCarthy.
Well, good morning. I know it's a little early, but it makes you feel any better. I'm from California, so the time zone makes it a little rougher. But thanks for having me. I feel I'm at home. As Pauline said, I cut my teeth by my first elected position to the community college. And at the time, Sandra was just president, Pauline on the board. And we had turmoil, but we worked through it. But the community college means more to me than that I served on the board. Let me walk you back a little bit and give you a little more background about myself, and you'll see how the community college actually changed my life. Born and raised in Bakersfield, California. It's a diverse area. And if you've never been to Bakersfield, we are energy and agriculture. Any of you eat baby carrots? Okay, 2 families in my district grow 80% of all the carrots in the country. And I'm going to give you a little hint. Those little baby carrots, they're big carrots chopped, but we charge you more for them, and you don't really quite realize it. But go ahead, keep eating them. I got out of high school, and I didn't quite have the grades that make me proud or my parents proud. Had a little fun in high school. Didn't have the athletic ability for a scholarship either. And there wasn't too many universities coming my way craving to have me. So I had a choice in life. I'd go out to work, become a fireman like my father. University wouldn't have me, or community college would. I went up to BC, started to work, and something else happened there. The professors there, I could talk to. I could see them in the community. I could walk up afterwards and have a discussion. So I started a little thing where in Bakersfield, you're kind of close to LA, you're 2 hours north of it. And I worked as a seasonal firefighter, but I'd take my money, I'd go to LA, and I'd buy cars, and I'd bring them back and sell them to make a profit. Technically, it could be illegal. I didn't have a license, but I was an entrepreneur. I didn't know this. It's, regulations. Who knows that? But an odd thing happened in California. They have this initiative system, and we just passed the lottery. So I'm 19 years old. I'm in my second year of Bakersfield College. And I decided I'm going to go visit some buddies at San Diego State. And I go to the grocery store to cash a check on the second day the lottery started. And I buy my first ticket, and you know what? I won the lottery. Pretty good, right? The most you can win at the time, it's not like the guy on Lost. The most you can win at the time is $5,000. But I'm 19 years old, so I have a big decision to make. Either I could throw the biggest party on campus, or I could invest the money. Now, who do I go to ask this question to? Don't really ask my parents. They're not investing money. I went to Mr. Marquez, my accountant professor, that we'd have discussions in class all the time. First thing he asked me was, how much did the government take? I said, no, they sent me the whole check. So we discussed, I sat down, and I invested in the stock market. He asked, how much risk do you have? Didn't charge me for a financial investor. And you know what? I did pretty well in the market. So at the end of that semester, I thought in Mr. Marquez's class has taught me a lot. You know what? I believed I was an entrepreneur, so I'm going to take next semester off. I'm going to take my money out of the market. I'm going to refinance the current cars I'm selling. I'm going to go open a business. Because if I fall on my face, I now have enough money. It's a life experience. But I'm going to try it because I don't think I could try it later in life, right? So I did, and it turned out pretty well. I learned a lot of struggles in that business. I'd still go back to my professors. But I now had enough money that I could pay for my college. And I sold my business. And in the paper, there was to be a summer intern in Washington, D.C. with my local congressman. And you know what I thought? How fortunate he would be to have me, right? Well, sad to tell you, I got turned down for that too. But I went back to him and said, let me just cut papers for free. And we did that, and that's what got me started in politics. I then went to my local university, graduated in undergrad, then I went back and got an MBA. But had the community college never been there, I would have never gotten to the university. If the community college had never been there, I would never be in Congress today. Now, when I sit and I happen, if you come by my office. I've never been in the majority whip office until I won whip. I've been in Congress 3 terms. I just started my 3rd term. I didn't know the room existed, okay? It's odd. They didn't invite me in. But when you walk in, all the history that's a part of that. I have a pretty big staff. My one staff, he's an undergrad of Stanford, graduate of Georgetown law degree. Even my staff at home, one with UCLA, master's degree from Princeton, had Bernanke as a professor, but they all work for a guy that went to community college. And that really rings home with me that this idea that we're going to predetermine that everyone's going to be a doctor or a lawyer. We are not going to succeed in this country. We need an educated workforce. We need an idea that people can rise to the top. And you know what? You never know when someone's going to bloom. You go back to all my teachers, they never thought I'd be where, my parents didn't think I could go where I'm at. I still wonder about it. But let me give you a couple lessons of what I have learned the short time in Congress, and then let me give you an idea of where I think Congress is going to go. I'm just started my 5th year, and every year you learn something more. First year I get here, you realize you need a lot more accountability. Next year, you need a lot more adult supervision. You ever watch the floor? It's crazy down there. But last year was a real turning point. The last 2 years of that term were very big divisions. But the only way to best describe it, have you all heard the story of the gentleman? He's 85 years old and he has a heart attack and he wakes up and sees his wife. And they've been married more than 50 years. And he looks at her and he goes, honey, you have always been there for me. I remember when we first got married and I had to come home and tell you I got fired from my job and you stayed with me. Could not find another job, so I joined the Army. So you joined the Nurses Corps to be near me. I got wounded and shot by my own men. You were there to care for me. came home, let's admit it, our 3 children, you raised all 3 of them. Went out, became an entrepreneur, started those 2 businesses that ended in bankruptcy. You stayed with me. Now today I have this heart attack. I wake up and who's the first person I see? I see you. I'm beginning to think you're bad luck. I mean, if you think of that little story and you think about where your government was at, we were doing all the wrong things, but we were blaming why the economy was not back. Now, I happen to be the majority whip, happen to be a Republican, but I'll be the first one to tell you Republicans did not win the majority. Democrats lost it. I'll be the first one to tell you in 2006, Democrats didn't win the majority, Republicans lost it. It's because the country is upset with both parties because they don't see solutions. And I will tell you that I'm one who believes a divided government is much healthier than a one-party rule on either side. When Republicans controlled, you saw they were going to lose it. Bush never vetoed anything. If you put something on the floor, it had to pass because a Republican had the idea or Democrats wrong. The challenge we face in this country are much bigger than we've had in the past. Not the challenge itself, because if you look at World War II, unbelievable challenge to save the world. But you know the difference between World War II and today? We were one country. We were one nation. The men went to war, the women went to the factory, the men went to war. We knew what the goal was. We knew we all sacrificed, and we all believed in it. Today, if one person brings the idea, the other divides it. And the problem is, our challenges are great. I want to give you a few scary statistics. In America today, I was in having a debate with a couple members. In America, you look at what you value. Everybody in this room will value your family. You value education because you give a great deal amount of your time to it, your occupation, your spare time. But the other things, if you look from afar, who you value, what do you spend your money on is what you value. You proportion, if you look from afar. Well, in America today, we spend on average 50% of our income on our home. In Asia, they spend 16%. In America today, we spend 2% of our income on the education of our children. In Asia, they will spend 16%. They will value, as much as they value their home, the future of their children's education. And you wonder, which way are we going to go? And if you look long term, how do you compete with that? Well, I will tell you, my district, you're not going to read really about it. My district goes from the Mojave Desert to the Pacific Ocean, but I only get to touch water during high tide because you know how they draw lines, little sand. But there's this little town called Mojave. Imagine none of you ever been there. It's in the middle of the desert. Only people from Bakersfield go there is on their way to Vegas. Now they built a road, you go around it. You don't get to stop there at the Carl's Jr. anymore. But this little airport in Mojave is 100% occupied in a time where unemployment is unbelievable. I was over there a couple months ago, and you all know who Richard Branson is with Virgin? They just put in $250 million investment into Mojave. Why? Because these 2 brothers, called the Rattan brothers, won a little prize. If you want to go to space privately, you got another $250,000, you can pay them to go there. But you know what happened along the way when we're building these new spaceships to go there? If you want to fly, you're going to have to go to New Mexico. Why is that? Because the New Mexico governor would come and watch it in Mojave, and they talked to Branson and said, I'll tell you what, if I build you a new runway and I give you some tax advantages, will you come to New Mexico? Well, he looks at the bottom line. Okay, I'll do that. We understand states compete with one another, but we don't understand as Americans, America competes with other countries today. And we've got to be able to understand that and take that, which I believe that can unite us. Today, when I look at the only time that America comes together is when there's an unbelievable, terrible situation that happens to America. Either we're attacked. We only sit together on the floor during the State of the Union when one of our members gets injured, that it makes you start looking at what you value. Well, you should take a terrible situation and make it better, and you should build and grow from that. Well, I will tell you that I also look, if I watch the Olympics, we all cheer for our country, do we not? We never once ask what they're registered to vote. We never ask their political philosophy, but we're all there. We're much stronger when we're united. So I believe if we come together with a package of bills that take the idea that America is competing with these other countries, not to give us an advantage, but give us a level playing field, that goes from education, that goes from the competitiveness, regulation, and forward. That's not a Republican or Democrat idea, that's an American idea, and a way that we can unite together. Now, there's small steps that I have tried to take. Steny Hoyer is the minority whip on the other side. We have lunch together. We don't go do a press conference about it. We sit and we talk about ways that we can, what can we agree with? Things that we disagree with goes into the parking lot. Things that we can agree with, let's start working towards that. That is a different function. I'll tell you in this new Congress, too, we've changed the structure. I'm a big believer that structure dictates behavior. Normally, when you go to a committee, somebody's calling a vote, so you never have a discussion. You never have a debate about the policy. So when it comes to the floor, it's a divided. One side puts a bill up, the other side puts a bill up, and you vote based upon policy, based upon party politics. Today, what we're saying is no votes till the afternoon, and we're scheduling all the committee times in the morning. So you're not going to be interrupted. You should have to learn the subject, and you should have to work it out with amendments in committee, so when it comes to the floor, you've already worked out the problem with the individuals that are supposed to know it best. That structure will help change the culture. It's not benefiting one side or the other, but it's benefiting all of us. Now, what is the nature that's going to happen in Washington today? Well, first and foremost, we can't continue to live the way we're currently living. We've avoided some very big problems that's on the horizon. And I'm going to give you one little story to try to put in perspective the amount of debt that this country has. The only time in this country that we have 100% of debt to GDP was during World War II. Why were we borrowing the money? Because we were defending our nation, but we were defending the world, and we were fighting for what was right and our liberties, and it was the just cause. Now, where were we getting our money and where were we borrowing it? We were borrowing it from one another. And once we were done with that, it all went down. Well, we're on a glide path to now surpass that. Well, what were we borrowing our money for now? Part of it is a social welfare. And so you've got to think, can you maintain that? Now, in 1970, 5% of our debt was owned by foreign countries. Today, it's roughly 47%, the largest happening to be China. Last February, America sold their weapons to Taiwan, which we've done many times before. China did not care for that. We also had the Dalai Lama come to and visit the president, which he's done many times before, but this time he had to go out the back door and not have a picture with him. Now, what did China say? China said we were at an all-time low in our relationship. Not true. China canceled our Secretary of Defense from going over there. He just recently was able to do it, to meet with their defense minister. But China did something much different. The next month, China was no longer the largest foreign holder of our debt. Japan became number one. It wasn't because Japan bought our debt, it was because China sold our debt. Now, if someone else is selling your debt and we continue to live at a $1.5 trillion deficit where you have to borrow each and every year, it goes back to when I was selling a car. If somebody else had a car very similar to mine with the same amount of miles, what I had to do, I had to lower the price, right? Well, if they're selling our debt and we're selling our debt, we have to raise the return on the investment, the interest. That means it costs all of us. Well, that was a very quiet and polite way of telling us they want to dictate our foreign policy. Why would we ever put ourselves in that position based upon the way we've been managing our fiscal house to be able to go there? That is the mindset of where we're going. In a few short decades, just the amount of money we bring in today, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security will take every dime of it. On average, you get about 18% of GDP in revenue, dipped down about 14.9 during the crisis. So now we have to learn to be smarter and wiser. So the idea that in Washington, people are going to look to how can we be more efficient? Now, the first thing everyone's got to understand, we cannot cut our way out of this. We can eliminate everything discretionary. That's every department you find in government. We can eliminate every single dollar in defense, and we will still have a deficit. So either everything has to be on the table to talk about and be able to be an efficiency on what's best for the future, Otherwise, not going to be there. So that is the mindset of what we're dealing with on both sides of the aisle, knowing that this crunch is about to hit us. So the debate that you're finding today, and now you're in a different situation. For the first time since the Budget Act of 1974, there was no budget last year. Now, how many of your colleges are able to go forward with no budget? We just did it as a country and had a $1.5 trillion deficit. So what's happened is the government is not fully funded. As of March 4th, the government will run out of money. Now, that's a difficult time because what happens is we need to make a decision in a political nature, some people want to, and others like me want to make it into policy. So what you're seeing and what you'll be hearing from members today is going to be a discussion of what they call the continuing resolution. Because we got to have some type of continuing resolution that funds the government to the rest of the year, or to our fiscal year, and then we produce a budget for this year, for the next year. That's what the president just proposed, and then you find us debating the current year. So the debate will go a little differently. And as I said earlier, I'm one who believes divided government is good. I also said I believe in structure dictates behavior. Now let me tell you from a political sense of what I think will transpire. Because the structure will dictate the behavior, it will work to the advantage of all Americans that something will get solved. Think of this. In my way of describing politics, this is how I learned it. When I was a little kid on Saturday morning watching Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a Bill on Capitol Hill, okay? That way works pretty well. But if I can frame the U.S. Senate, that's like a country club. You ever been there? I mean, very beautiful. Every senator thanks their president, and it's a very beautiful place. U.S. Congress, that's like going to your truck stop and having breakfast. All right? And the Founding Fathers, we're all up for election every 2 years, so we're a direct reflection of what's happening in the country. So we can swim and swallow. And you just saw us switch sides very rapidly. 4 years ago one way, now it's another way. So we're up all the time. We feel wherever the country's at. And we know we're going to be held accountable every 2 years, so we're more reactive and we go home more often. In the U.S. Senate, they're up every 6 years. Well, those individuals who are up, in the House, the Republicans are in the majority. So the majority really runs, who's ever in the majority, really runs the policy of what comes out of the House. In the Senate, it's much different. But in the Senate, where the Democrats control, 21 of those Democrats are up for re-election. They got elected in 2006. And this last election was bigger than 1994. Republicans had not had this type of election since 1930s. But you want to know the real reason why you see it? If you look at 1994, unemployment was 4.5%. 2006, the other time when majority switched, it was 5.5. You haven't seen that type of unemployment that consistently since the 1930s. It's more about jobs and unemployment than it is about either party or policy. And what you'll find is you have people that got elected in 2006 seeing that the country's in a different place. They're going to be more open to find a solution because that's what the public wants. Then you have the presidency up for a re-election this time as well. So the structure says you better go find a solution, otherwise no one's going to get re-elected, and that's the structure. So I believe this is the time and place that we could actually meet some big challenges. I've been here 4 years. The president had been here 2 years. His party was in full control. He had no reason to go meet with Republicans. So for the first time, we all went and had lunch the other day. He invited me down with Boehner and Cantor, and we had Joe Biden, we had Daley. We actually had a very nice lunch. Off the record, we talked about a lot of different things of where we'd want this country to go, and we were very honest. This first year is probably where we can do our most work, because presidential politics will get into the next year. So we've really got to focus now. The next 2 weeks will determine how we interact together. We haven't had to have that interaction yet, but this continuing resolution and this debate of where we're going to go is going to tell us whether we can work together, of whether we can put politics aside and put the country first. So watch what happens in the next 3 weeks will determine how the debate on other items go as well. Now, I'm not going to hide from the fact we both have our philosophies. The president wants to freeze where we are. Republicans want to say we want to have a cut. And we're talking about discretionary. If you take the stimulus and you take the advancements to it in the last 3 years, discretionary has gone up 83%. So we think there's room to put a curve. We also think you have to grow the economy. And I just want to give you these small facts, because I happen to be from California. In California, I always think California is ahead of the country. But the sad part is in California, we're ahead of the country in the debt, so we're on the wrong side, okay? And this is how bad California is. Even in the best years of California, when we had all the surpluses, you know the only place the state cut? Community colleges. When they had $6 billion extra dollars, they still cut community colleges, which to me do more with less than any other institution of education you have. But I'm going to end with this, and we'll go to any question you want. In California, we have roughly 37 to 38 million people live in California. That's 12% of the nation's population. Do you know what our percent of the nation's welfare population lives in California? You'd think roughly 12%, right? Well, it's higher. It's higher than 20. 32% of the nation's welfare population lives in California. We get 25% of the entire budget in California from 144,000 people out of 37 million. You cannot maintain that if you're going to be able to plan for the future. If you punish something, you get less of it. If you reward something, you get more of it. When I go into high schools, I always give the example. Tiger Woods was born in California. Could get a scholarship to probably any college. He's a pretty good golfer. He chose to go to Stanford. Good place to play golf, good education. But he didn't live in California. He moved away. Not when he found a new house on a golf course the day he turned pro. The Williams sisters, pretty good tennis players, are they not? They learned to play tennis in the parks of LA. They don't live in California either anymore. So we have to think from that perspective. If we're going to be competitive, we're not only competing as states, but we're competing as one nation. And we've got to find that we're able to broaden our tax base and expand it, but also broaden our workforce. Those were the two goals of where we have to achieve. So let me stop there, and I'll go to any questions that you have or any direction you want to talk about as well. Is that all right? How do you want to take questions? You want to moderate?
Ladies and gentlemen, please make your questions available and use the microphone. Identify who you are, which college you're from, and what your role is. And please, no statements, just questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the pressure's on. My name is Robin Smith, and I'm a trustee with Lansing Community College. And I understand that these next 3 weeks are going to be very, very critical. Can you tell me what you think the top 2 priorities are going to be as it relates to what Republicans are going to put on the table? Because as you're saying, we now have to come together. And so can you tell me where you feel that there's commonality for us to come together?
From both sides, I think the commonality is going to happen about jobs. If we don't get America working again, we're never going to get anywhere. And think from one perspective. What are the revenues in if unemployment is 4% to 9%? And I think we can find common ground on jobs. Now, where do you find common ground on jobs? We can bring some common sense to regulation. I think the president talked about that. He talked about that in our luncheon. I think the tax system as well. The president has the same opinion when it comes to corporate tax rates. We have to make it different if we're competing worldwide. China just surpassed Japan as the second largest economy in the world. Japan's the only one that has a higher corporate tax rate than America. I think we can learn from different places. Those two factors, and I think if we just focus on jobs, then we can start focusing on the other. When it comes to the debate of the future, when it relies to debt, I think we'll find some common ground when it comes to the so-called entitlements. Because if you really want to protect Medicare and Social Security, you've got to do something now. Every year we'll add $12 trillion to unfunded. And the longer you wait to do anything about it, your options expire. And the longer you wait,